The Syrian Revolution has been reignited after a 4-year ceasefire where the battle lines hardly moved at all, with the Syrian rebels taking over the city of Aleppo and the city of Hama too. Before I go any further, I'd like to welcome you to my channel, Democracy Report, and would ask that you consider subscribing if you are at all interested in news and history. And of course, don't forget to hit the like button as well. First, we will briefly talk about the al-Assad dictator dynasty and the Syrian revolution leading up to this point. Then we will talk about the three main fighting factions in Syria. In the 1960s, Syria went through coups and changes in leadership. Then in 1971, General Hafez al-Assad, the father of Bashar al-Assad, took power and declared himself president. Hafez was an Alawite, which is a religious sect that splintered from early Shia Islam. Hafez suppressed civil and political rights of the Syrian people. For 3 decades, he subjugated the Syrian people to state terror, including mass murder, torture, forced deportations, political opponents being imprisoned, tortured, or killed. Call it typical dictator behavior. Hafez died in 2000, and his son, Bashar al-Assad, took power. Before we get to 2011 and the start of massive protests, I'd just state that as Syria was transitioning from one dictator to another, the Damascus Spring came about. This was a period of activists calling for change. It started with the Statement of 99. This was a statement made by 99 Syrian intellectuals in September 2000. The intellectuals called for political prisoners to be pardoned, for those deported, referring to the political opponents, to be allowed to return to the country. There was a call for free speech, for freedom of assembly, and so on. Bashar continued the same sort of oppression and subjugation as his father Hafez. In 2011, there was the Arab Spring, and it reached Syria as well. In March of that year, large-scale pro-democracy protests broke out all throughout Syria, and the Bashar government initiated a violent and brutal crackdown. By mid-2012, it was a full-blown war. To summarize that war as succinctly as possible, rebel forces received arms from the West. In 2013, Raqqa was captured by the rebels. In 2015, Idlib was captured. At that point, Russia launched a campaign in support of the Bashar government. In 2016, Turkey launched a multi-pronged invasion of northern Syria in response to the creation of the Rojava, or you can call it Syrian Kurdistan. It's a de facto autonomous region in the northeastern part of Syria. ISIS was also involved and in 2014 had captured large part of eastern Syria. By late 2017, ISIS was territorially defeated in Syria. By late 2018, all rebel strongholds except for a part of the Idlib region had fallen. Between 2020 and just recently, the frontline fighting had mostly stopped. But now, with the recapture of Aleppo and Hama, the quiet civil war has all of a sudden turned into a loud one. There are countless Syrians who are detained or who have been disappeared by the Syrian government for speaking out or doing anything that is perceived to be against the Assad regime. With Syria entering this new phase of open violence, what can we say about the future of Syria and specifically the Syrian people? I think we can start by reaching one very safe conclusion. The only way that the people of Syria have a future is if Bashar al-Assad is removed from power, because that's the only way they can have basic rights. I see the Syrian revolution in 2 phases though. I think phase 1 will be to remove Assad from power. That's going to be very difficult. It will cost a lot of blood. And phase 2 will be to remove all of the extremist elements from Syria, because some of the groups fighting Assad have those elements. Let's talk about the main groups in Syria. We don't have to spend too much time on the Syrian Arab Army. Those are the soldiers who are under the control of Bashar al-Assad, and we know how this dictator dynasty likes to operate and what they think of basic rights of the Syrian people. Let's talk about Tahrir al-Sham, HTS, the rebel group that has taken Aleppo. So the Tahrir al-Sham translates to the Organization for the Liberation of the Levant. The Levant references the countries near the East Mediterranean Sea, so mainly Syria, Jordan, Israel, Lebanon, and Cyprus. Al-Juliani was the head of the al-Nusra Front, which is the Syrian branch of al-Qaeda from 2012 through 2016. Then at some point after that, he became a moderate and essentially went to war with both al-Qaeda and ISIS when he became the leader of HTS in October 2017. And al-Juliani has worked hard to try and rebrand himself as a moderate, even issuing out a statement saying that no minorities will be harmed in Aleppo after the takeover of that city. HTS itself was formed in January of 2017. It's a conservative and Islamist group. It publicly split with al-Qaeda in 2017, and the group put their focus on fighting both al-Qaeda and ISIS and were an effective fighting force because they defeated both. In late 2018, they were estimated to be around 16,000 fighters, with about a quarter being foreign fighters. So the latest estimate we have is from 2022 that puts the group at 15,000 fighters. So not a huge number. In 2018, the US, Canada, and Turkey designated HTS a terrorist organization. So Tahrir al-Sham is the main Syrian opposition group involved in the recent takeover of Aleppo and Hama that took merely a few days. HTS is rumored to be backed by Turkey, which is ironic because, as I mentioned earlier, Turkey considers them a terrorist organization. So Turkey's motivation in Syria are to weaken the SDF, we'll get to them in a moment, and to be able to return Syrian refugees currently in Turkey back to Syria. There are well over 3 million Syrian refugees in Turkey. But what do Syrians think of HTS? Luckily, we have an answer to that, at least an answer that is from mid-2017. The Echo Research Center at a Canadian university polled nearly 5,000 Syrians living in Syria about HTS. 77% of those surveyed disagreed with their Salafist ideology that they were promoting in Idlib. Idlib is the northwestern area of Syria where Syrian opposition forces and people were pushed into before there was a ceasefire agreement in 2020. And it's super interesting that almost 100% of the Syrians who were polled said that HTS was contrary to the goals of the Syrian opposition. The next faction is SDF, the Syrian Democratic Forces. This is a Kurdish group that is the military wing of the Rojava. They are located in northeast part of Syria. SDF was founded in 2015 with the stated mission to create a secular and federalized Syria. The SDF is opposed by Turkey. Turkey claims SDF is linked with the PKK, which stands for Kurdistan Workers' Party, and is an armed guerrilla group based in southeastern Turkey and northern Iraq. Turkey recognizes the PKK as a terrorist group. The SDF is led by the People's Protection Unit, YPG. It's a Kurdish militia. It's also designated as a terrorist group by Turkey. It is, however, supported by the United States. So here we see how sometimes these terrorist designations can be based on politics. Western sources describe the YPG as the most effective fighting force against ISIS. In 2016-2017, SDF captured ISIS's de facto capital in Syria. I am referring, of course, to the Syrian city of Raqqa. According to SDF, 70% of the SDF that took Raqqa were Arab soldiers as opposed to Kurds. The last estimate we have is from 2021, but it puts the SDF at 100,000 fighters. If we had to simplify and dumb down the complicated situation in Syria, we can probably call SDF the good guys. But we have to be careful because there has been reports of human rights violations by SDF as well. In the early 2019, the SDF defeated ISIS in Syria. Since that time, they have focused on resisting the growing Turkish occupation of northern Syria. That's a little about the Syrian Revolution. If you find this video interesting or helpful, please consider liking and subscribing. Will Bashar al-Assad fall from power? Let me know in the comments below. See you next time.